anytime we have coach on coach social media, I don't know what this is, a fracas? Is this a fight? We haven't heard a response yet, so it's only one-sided right now. But we've got Bret Bielema versus Jim Harbaugh, which can't be contested on the field anymore because Jim Harbaugh is not in college football. So unless Bret Bielema wants to go to the NFL or Jim Harbaugh wants to come back to college, we can't get that. Now, we could get it off the field, which that would be fascinating. Former Iowa defensive lineman Bret Bielema, former Michigan quarterback Jim Harbaugh. But these guys, I think these are two guys that are very resolute in their opinions. And Bret Bielema, when he read, presumably, Ross Dellinger's story about Michigan's defense in its NCAA case involving the Connor Stallions advanced scouting program and Harbaugh and what everybody knew or didn't know, and Michigan's going to dig its heels in and fight. Well, some fans unearthed some old Harbaugh clips, and Bielema had some fun with those. So let's play one of those clips from back when Jim Harbaugh coached the 49ers, so before he became the Michigan coach.
And you always want to be above approach, especially when you're good, because you don't want people to come back and say, oh, they're winning because they're cheating. We want to be above reproach and everything, do everything by the rules. Because if you don't, if you cheat to win, then you've already lost.
So Bielema responds to this video with this tweet. Really? Why did you leave? Was looking forward to playing, but understand why you ran to the NFL. Now, this is funny on a lot of levels because Bielema did not have all that much success against Jim Harbaugh. Now, I think the team that Bret Bielema has coming back this year, I think he'd feel pretty good about how that would fare against one of Jim Harbaugh's teams. But this is okay. Let's get one thing straight. Jim Harbaugh didn't run to the NFL because of the NCAA stuff, because of the Connor Stallions NCAA stuff, or the Cheeseburger Gate NCAA stuff. Jim Harbaugh ran to the NFL because he was always going back to the NFL. He tried to go to the NFL when the Vikings job was open. He interviewed for the Vikings job. He didn't get it. They gave it to Kevin O'Connell. He tried again when the Broncos job was open. They hired Sean Payton. He was always going back to the NFL. Those Michigan fans who tell you, oh, he would have stayed, but Ward Manuel, the athletic director, he just messed that up. No, he was always going back to the NFL. When he got a job, he was taking it. So when the Chargers offered him the job, he took it. If they hadn't offered him the job and no one else had offered him the job in last year's cycle, he would have come back to Michigan. He was always going to the NFL if he got a job. If he didn't get a job, he was going to come back to Michigan, which probably would have been much more entertaining in terms of this NCAA case. But I don't think Bret is being completely upfront here when he said ran to the NFL. Well, first of all, coaches don't run to the NFL. They get called up to the NFL. You have to do something to get hired by an NFL team. And so Harbaugh, having previously been a successful NFL head coach, had a lot more chance of getting an NFL job than, say, your average college coach, most of whom would love to go to the NFL because then they don't have to recruit anymore. Now, was the NCAA going to make Harbaugh's life very difficult if he stayed at Michigan? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But that's not why he was going to the NFL. He was going to the NFL because he was a good head coach in the NFL before. He got to a Super Bowl. He lost to his brother in the Super Bowl. And he was always going back to the NFL if he could. Now, Bielema found another clip. This one's even funnier. Roll the Judge Judy.
Be honest. Tell the truth. You know, if I want them to tell the truth, then I have to tell the truth all the time when you're in a leadership position. I mean, Judge Judy, I watch her. I mean, I got 90 episodes of Judge Judy TiVo'd on my TV, and that's what I watch. And one thing about her courtroom is if you lie in Judge Judy's courtroom, it's over.
Now, what if the NCAA says, did you take this recruit out for a cheeseburger when you weren't supposed to be meeting with a recruit? And you say, I don't recall. And then the NCAA says, here's the receipt. Do you recall now? And you say, I don't recall. What would Judge Judy say about that? Bielema's response to that video, by the way, was laughing, crying emoji, football, laughing, crying emoji. I really would like Jim Harbaugh to come back to college football just to play Bret Bielema now, because I would love to see the pregame meeting at midfield. Would they talk to each other? Would they even look at each other? How would the postgame handshake go? It'd be spectacular. Like, we need more of this. We need more of this in college football. And hopefully Bielema is not going to be shy and not going to only do this with guys that aren't in college football anymore that he can't really do anything about. Because, like, Jim Harbaugh can't fire back on the field here because he's in the NFL. But we asked Bielema. We remember we had Bielema on the show last week, and Ari asked him, are you going to be this guy? Because we saw him. He and Shane Beamer got into it at the bowl game. Like, are you going to be the guy who does say this? Because we need this in college football. Like, we need the agitators, the Steve Spurriers, the people who spice it up, who keep it interesting. So here's what Bret Bielema said when Ari asked that.
And anybody who's followed your career all the way back to Wisconsin has known that you have ruffled some feathers from time to time, but you're also unapologetically yourself and one of the bigger personalities in the sport. Have you thought about, what that could mean for Illinois if you were to step in and become one of those personalities who, I'm not saying getting into spats with people, but just like, just being yourself and making headlines, is that good for Illinois? And do you find an emphasis on like, hey, the more you can be you, the better?
I tell our kids every day, there's three things every day when you wake up you should do, right? Try to do things the right way, be respectful of everyone, and be the best you. And I tell them, hey, for me, I only know how to be Bret Bielema. I have a brother named Barry and a brother named Bart. I can't be either one of them. I could be me, right? I don't try to be somebody else. I try to be the person I am.
We don't want Barry Bielema or Bart Bielema going after other coaches. We'll take Bret Bielema doing it. We'll take it because it makes the sport more interesting. Now, what I love is this topic just never stops. The Connor Stallions topic is the gift that keeps on giving. We talked about this the other day on the show. Every day in the chat, you guys get into this. Like, Connor Stallions' name comes up. Obviously, lately, while we've been talking a lot about Ohio State as Ohio State marched to the national title, it would come up because a Michigan fan would make fun of Ohio State for losing to Michigan. An Ohio State fan would fire back, you guys are a bunch of cheaters, Connor Stallions, and it would just devolve into that in the chat. But it actually doesn't matter what we're talking about. We could be talking about Alabama. We could be talking about Texas Tech. We could be talking about the Mountain West or the MAC title race. And Connor Stallions always came up. Always. Every episode. And it's spectacular because it's politics is what it is. I figured out it is politics. Like, and some people watch politics as their sports. I can't do that. I'm not wired that way. But I realize that some people do, and they've got their team, and then they've got the other team that they hate, their rival, and that's how they view it. And I think the Connor Stallions thing is just like that. It is, you believe one way or the other. You believe that Connor Stallions brazenly violated an NCAA rule, orchestrated an in-person scouting scheme. The rest of the coaches knew about it. It was a massive advantage for Michigan. It's cheating. It was terrible. That's one side. Or you believe he was just this try-hard analyst. The coaches didn't even take him seriously. They got no real advantage out of it. They ended up winning anyway. It didn't really matter. And he's just a scapegoat because Ohio State people are mad about losing to Michigan. And you believe that. And there's no argument that either one side can make to the other that is going to cause anyone to bend or change their mind. It's politics. You will go to your deathbed believing one of these two things. Now, I do think there's a large group, and I think I fall into this group, where we don't really care that much and just find all of this hilarious. And I do think it's going to keep going. It may get less hilarious as it goes through the NCAA case, because, again, Michigan is going to dig its heels in. They're going to fight this all the way. And here's my question. Like, what can the NCAA even do at this point? Can they strip Michigan of the national title? If they do, who cares? Like, what does that even matter? That's banners and signage. Like, winning the national title is on YouTube. We watched it. The rings have been given out. Do you think Michigan fans are going to suddenly throw their national title gear into a fire and be like, well, I don't believe in anything anymore? If the NCAA comes and strips them a title, they don't care. Meanwhile, if the NCAA does nothing, Ohio State fans are going to be like, I can't believe you had all this evidence. You did nothing. And, like, they're going to give Harbaugh a show cause. Who cares? He coaches the Chargers. If things go well with the Chargers, he's never coming back to college football. Like, he's not the youngest guy in the world. He's not coming back. Connor Stallions was never going to coach again anyway. Like, it doesn't really matter going forward. Like, lots of money is going to get spent on this by Michigan, by the NCAA. Nothing will actually be solved. We'll be entertained, I suppose. I think it'll get less entertaining as it goes. But it's funny because I'm looking in the chat now. Jay Grizz, we all know they cheated. Plant that flag. No hammer is ever coming. Laughing my ass off. This is what it devolves into every day. Doesn't matter what we're talking about. Today we're actually talking about it. But it just means we're going to get more of this. And look, if it gets more coach on coach, like I would love if Harbaugh responds to this. Now, Harbaugh, because he doesn't have to recruit anymore, doesn't really have to go on Twitter. So I don't know that we're going to get anything from Harbaugh back at Bielema, but I'll take it, man. It is late January. We have a long, long off season. I'm ready for whatever they're willing to give us in terms of off-field coaching rivalries, of hatred, of poking fun at each other. Give me all of it. But keep coming back in the chat and keep arguing about this. I am ready for your arguments. Plant that flag. Good stuff says, we beat the Buckeyes. We still have the bragging rights over you, natty or not. That's the rules of the game. And the Ohio State fans are like, who cares? We're the national champions. And the Michigan fans are like, who cares? We were the national champions last year. It's amazing. Plant that flag. Also a Michigan fan. I remember when the NCAA dropped the hammer on Ohio State, but it won't happen to Michigan. Actually, the NCAA did not drop the hammer on Ohio State. They had to sit out the postseason in 2012, which I think they went undefeated, but I think they were kind of okay with not having to play like Alabama in that postseason. I don't think that would have gone that well for that particular Ohio State team. So it's okay. That team actually probably is more legendary for going undefeated and being left out. Now, they could have just sat out the Gator Bowl the year before, and then they would have played in the postseason. But that's not really the hammer, I don't think. But we'll see what the NCAA tries to do to Michigan. Do they try to do a bowl ban? Do they try to do anything like that? If they do, it's going to real court. And I'm telling you, the stuff from NCAA court will never hold up in real court. And that's probably what they're afraid of. You know, this is one more example of the NCAA being defanged. But yeah, it will go to real court if they try to do anything. And they're going to have to figure out how to manage this eventually, where you can have rules, where you can enforce rules. But I don't think this is going to be the case that does that. But if it gives us more moments of entertainment, if Bret Bielema wants to keep chirping, again, he says he can only be Bret Bielema. Well, keep being Bret Bielema. Keep this energy with the coaches that you also play against, because that will be fun. And again, we saw it. We saw it on the field with Shane Beamer in South Carolina during the bowl game. So maybe that's Bret Bielema's new role in this new college football universe. And maybe he's more emboldened to do that because he had a very good team last year. They have most of their good players coming back. They could potentially be really good next year. So does that mean we're going to get lots of fun agitator Bret Bielema? Bring it on. And if we can set up a game or even a celebrity boxing match between Bret Bielema and Jim Harbaugh, let's do it. Because this is nothing but entertainment at this point.